Hello and welcome. I hope everyone is doing good. I'm your host Akash from ProApp. Thank you for taking the time to join us today as we talk about how to prepare for your design interview. We have seen many designers having questions like, hey, how should I get my first design job, or how should I even prepare for it? Interviewing for design jobs is highly competitive. Sure, a portfolio is a foot through the door and may even wedge the door open, but none of the clients would hire someone solely on the merits of them being a good designer, right? The real test for suitability comes in an interview of the designer. Lack of preparation and awareness for what the design will entail are key reasons designers stumble. Julia is a design recruiter in Portland, and prior to her current role in the last 5 years, she has been a full-time UX educator at various boot camps such as Journal Assembly, Career Foundry, Springboard, and Design Lab, among others. In the past, she has been a UX designer and manager for enterprise corporations, agencies, and startups. And to make sure we're helping you as best as we can on today's topic, we have a Q&A to source your questions. Feel free to drop questions on the topic in the Q&A or share your struggles and experiences in the chat box. We'll answer your questions by the end of this workshop. Without further ado, let me introduce you to Julia Debari. Hey, Julia.
Hello, thank you for having me. Okay. I have a slide deck. Let me share my screen. Yeah, so this includes a little bit like before the interview, as well as during the interview. It's a little more broad than in depth. I do other talks over on ADP list. Certainly you can check those out as well. And I do want to apologize. This is mostly focused on the US, or this is focused on the US market, as that is what I'm most familiar with. So things might be different if you are not in the US. So just a little bit of the agenda. Hopefully you will be getting the slides afterwards. There are quite a few links at the end for more resources. So I hope you don't have to rush and take a bunch of notes and try and write those down. But you should hopefully be getting the slides at the end. So a little bit about me, super short. Thank you for the introduction before. I did not go to art school, but I did get a very related degree to UX called human ecology, which is how humans interact with their environment, whether it be natural or man-made. I began my career in the dot-com bubble in San Francisco, California, part of Silicon Valley. And I was actually living and working there almost all of my career. I just recently moved 2 months ago. So I'm very familiar with the Silicon Valley market. I started in UX design for many years and then switched to teaching UX design for 5 years. I did some design program management as well. And now I'm doing recruiting specifically for design roles for the US. So I wanted to talk a little bit about your competition. I don't know people's backgrounds, but whether you've gone to university or a boot camp, the boot camps are churning out lots and lots and lots of students. So they're probably your biggest competition. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. Some popular boot camps, this isn't all of them by any stretch. I think I did a survey of boot camps a couple of years ago, and there were over 160 worldwide. And after that, I just stopped. But these seem to be some of the most popular. So Trilogy 2U, they don't advertise what they are, but if you go to a university that offers a boot camp, that's the #1 company that offers the curriculum and the program structure. It's usually 6 months. So if you have some kind of university boot camp program, it's probably coming from them. IXTF is the Interaction Design Foundation. I worked there for a while getting their boot camp set up. And then there was some stuff happening, but they're supposedly relaunching in March. So it can be a cost-effective way. So I see a lot of people will probably be going towards those. So I just want to make you aware of that. To get a job, at least in the US, there are company-sponsored apprenticeships, and then there are people offering sort of like ad hoc apprenticeships, such as Tech Fleet. I work with DIA, Design Guild. We offer apprenticeships. There are a few other ones as well, where it's usually run by just a couple individual people, and you work on projects in groups, hopefully to learn more like industry kind of practice versus school practice. And then, people who self-study, or just people wanting to upskill and learning more. These are some of the most common places to go. Definitely recommend taking courses here and there. At least in the US, you can take a lot of courses just without getting a degree. CIID was the Copenhagen Interactive, forgot what it's called, design. They recently closed down in Copenhagen, are now located in Costa Rica, but it's still the same program. You can take courses anywhere from a week to, I think they have a year-long program. It's a very good program, but it's another thing. Usually people there aren't looking for new jobs, but it's a good way to upskill. So some current hiring trends within the United States. I was going to talk about the process first, and then I'll talk more about trends. So the first thing you need to do is get into the applicant tracking system. I know you hear a lot about the evil applicant tracking system. It may be a little bit biased, but I don't know if I consider it evil. I also, as a recruiter, consider it a pain and frustrating to use. There are lots and lots of different applicant tracking systems that companies can buy and use at their workplace, and they all have varying degrees of what they can do. But the main thing it is used for is to track applicants. You submit your resume, you submit your information. So like when you apply online and ask you to fill out these form fields and upload your resume and your cover letter, put in your portfolio, that's putting you into an applicant tracking system. Mostly what that does is it just allows me as the recruiter to track, like, oh, I see a new person entered their information. I'm going to go look at their resume, see if they're a fit for the role. And then I can say, like, yes, they are a fit, or no, they're not. And I can tell you it's possible to turn off what I say. So if you're not a fit, that doesn't mean you'll get a response. So that explains a lot of this ghosting and why you're not getting a response. Some roles I have 500-600 applicants, and it's just, I don't have time to write back to every single person. Probably 30 to 40% of the people who apply are not even remotely qualified at all. And it makes me wonder, did they even read the job description? So it's just not worth my time getting back to those people. If you do interviews, usually you'll get a response back, like if you're not making it to the next round or not. But when you just apply, there's so many people applying that it's just too much volume to send responses to everyone. Sadly, like I was one of those people who was like always mad, like, why am I being ghosted by recruiters? This is actually why I got into recruiting recently, to understand this process better. It's not going to be my new career. It's for me to understand how this process works and then share that with other people. So after you get in the applicant tracking system and you're okay, like you're might be a fit, you talk with the in-house recruiter. That's usually 15-20 minute chat, asking some what we call screening questions, some background questions about how you might have done certain things that would be of relationship to the role. And at any of these points, you can be moved forward or end the process. If you pass that, then you usually talk to the hiring manager for 30 minutes. And then if you pass that, it's the next couple ones are in different order depending on the company, but you can do an assignment, like a take-home assignment, or an in-person or remote assignment where you do like a design challenge. Another part is then talking with different members of the team. It can be one-on-one or in a panel. You'll also talk with cross-functional team members. That can also be one-on-one or in a panel. There's usually a portfolio review, usually with the team. That's usually an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. If it's shorter than that, I get really nervous, and that's a red flag for me as far as the company, that they don't really know what they're looking for. And then if you pass all of those steps, then there's a negotiation of the offer, and then accepting the offer and starting. If you're going through a third-party recruiter, which is what I am, so companies come to us to help them fill roles. The process is slightly different at the beginning and the end, but other than that, the process in between is the same. You talk to me as a recruiter first, the same thing. It's usually 15 minutes with some screening questions. And then it's my job to sell you to the hiring manager. If I think you're a good fit, and then if they like you, you talk to them and go through the same process. The thing that's different is the recruiter will negotiate an offer for you, so you don't have to talk about money, you don't have to worry about any of that. The recruiter handles all of that, and then you accept the offer and start. So that's if you're going for a full-time role. There are differences between what we call in-house versus contract. In-house actually doesn't, that was for about me. So it should be full-time versus contract roles. With contract roles, the interview process is much shorter. And you usually only talk to the recruiter and the hiring manager and maybe one other person. And then, so the interview process is a lot shorter. You will still have a portfolio review. It's usually with the hiring manager in the first interview. Benefits are usually not included in a contract role. It's straight hourly payment. Your contract length can be anywhere from like a month to 2 years. Technically in the US, you're not allowed to be a contractor for more than a year. But there's a loophole to get around this, and lots of big companies do that. Wells Fargo is famous for this. Like when you get a contract at Wells Fargo Bank, it's usually a 2-year contract. I find that a little sneaky and frustrating. Contract roles can be contract to hire or just straight contract, and sometimes they don't know. The hiring manager doesn't know. It just depends on what happens at the company. And so conversion just means converting you to a full-time employee with benefits and a salary. So some trends: if you're a UX designer, you must have a portfolio. Every role I've seen says portfolio required. If you're doing UX research, there is more of an ask for a portfolio lately, but not always. You know, it might be good to have one in your back pocket, but if you're really focusing on UX research, don't not apply because you don't have a portfolio. You might have to show stuff in the interview process, but it doesn't have to be like a full-on fancy portfolio. Usually you'll be asked questions for design and research about persuasion, advocacy, how you articulate design decisions or your research decisions, and how you can show actionable results for people to take based on your designs or research. So where to find jobs? Obviously LinkedIn job listings, but another way to look is also just posts. So if you search like UX jobs, and then on the top nav bar it says like you have a drop down and you can choose posts. A lot of people post like I'm hiring, and so that can be another way to find jobs that might be not showing up on the LinkedIn job listings, because you do have to pay quite a bit of money to post a job listing. Indeed, lots of other job boards. There's so many job boards. Another place is Slack groups. There are tons of UX Slack groups. I'm in 58, which I regret because it's a little overwhelming. And then networking, which does take time, but it's probably your best bet to get your first time job. So let's talk a little bit about how to get that first interview. So your portfolios, when you're creating your case study, you do not need to put everything you did in your course in the case study. You want to think about what is the goal you want the hiring manager or recruiter to get from your case study. What do you want them to know about you before you put together your case study? It isn't like, look, I can do all this stuff. Everyone is putting that in their portfolio. Like, everyone is showing, look, I can do every little thing you want me to do. But hiring managers are looking for you to solve a specific problem. So it can be good, like, I solved this problem in one case study, and then I solved this different problem in a different case study. I would say you could start applying with only 3 case studies in your portfolio. That's fine. I would never have more than 6 case studies in your portfolio. It's just too much for, if it's more than that, for someone to go through. And I can tell you as a recruiter, I only usually go through like 2 or 3 case studies. So if you're like further along in your career, you always want your best 6 projects or the ones you're most proud of on your portfolio. If you put timeline, like this project was 2 or 4 weeks, it can seem really junior because in the industry, it's usually months or years. So just don't put that in there. For example, I was reviewing someone's portfolio a couple of years ago, and it said like 1 week for one case study, 2 weeks for another case study, and then 2 weeks for the third case study. And so looking at that as a hiring manager, I was like, so you have 5 weeks of UX experience? Like, why should I hire you? Like, you're not making me want to hire you at all. You're not lying about it. You're just not like brandishing how little you have. If someone asks in the interview, certainly tell them, but don't shout it out there for everyone to hear. It's more about the story and what you accomplished than like the time is not as important. So if you put the process, like my design process or my user research process, that also makes you look really junior. You should know the process, and the people looking at your portfolio should know the process. I want to see like what decisions you made and why. Why did you choose certain research methods? Why did you make certain design decisions? Show me how you had to pivot or change something because of something you learned. What did you learn about yourself or the industry or problem you were solving as well? It doesn't need to be, you don't need a ton of text, but you do need some. If you have just images, I'm not even going to look at your portfolio. I need to know what you were thinking, your thought process, and why you did what you did. That's going to help me know, oh, should I bring this person an interview? Maybe they can solve the problem I have. So your LinkedIn profile, definitely make sure you have a profile photo. The cover photo is nice, but not required. I do recommend it, but it's not like a make or break thing. Your headline has 255 characters. I definitely recommend using all of those. So don't just put like UX designer, UX researcher, put more about like what other skills you have. You want to definitely include the role you're going for, but you can tie it in with past skills if you're a transitioner or other things you're interested in. Include your gender pronouns. You may think that doesn't matter, but it can show an allyship with other people that are not the same gender as you, and also trans or other kinds of things like that. And so it shows a willingness to be a part of a group that's inclusive. Your about section has 2,600 characters. I definitely recommend using all those characters. If you don't know what to say, you can put some information about various case studies, bulleted lists, Talk about different skills. If you're a career transitioner, what you did before and how it relates to what you're doing now. Your featured section, you can put your portfolio. I do not recommend putting a resume on your LinkedIn or your portfolio. For LinkedIn, it's basically a larger version of your resume, so you're just repeating information. And why I don't say to put it on your portfolio is your resume should be targeted specifically to the job you're applying to. So there shouldn't just be one resume. I have thousands of copies of my resume that I've adjusted for each role I've applied to. If you've done Medium articles or something, you can put that in featured. For your portfolio link in your LinkedIn, I would suggest putting it in the About section, your contact section, and your featured section. As a recruiter, I do not see your featured section in the recruiter version of LinkedIn, but it can be helpful for hiring managers. For your experience, bulleted items, don't just do a paragraph of text. And if you're a transitioner, definitely include transferable skills in your other jobs. I want to see that you had other jobs, so don't not put those on there, but include skills, soft skills, and achievements that I could translate to UX. And then the skills section at the bottom, you get 50 skills. Use all of those. LinkedIn Recruiter is a type of applicant tracking system, and the way I search, it goes by keywords. So the more you have a certain keyword or a couple keywords, the higher you'll show when I search for like UX designer or UX researcher. And then you want people to endorse you for those skills, so friends, coworkers, things like that. Networking, have focus. Don't just randomly, what we call spray and pray, randomly reaching out to people. Definitely have a focus of like what type of people you're looking for. Have goals. It's a repeated thing. It's not like you do something once and then it's done. You need to constantly keep up to date and interact with people in your network. When you are sending a LinkedIn request, make sure to always include a note. It can be frustrating on mobile because it doesn't ask you if you want to include a note. It just sends it. If you go to like the more menu, it can say personalized invite, and that's where you can write a note on mobile. The more connections you have, the more information you'll get in your feed, and the more you'll show up in related search results. So I'm not going to read all this, but just keep in mind that networking involves you adding value for others, and that it takes time, effort, and perseverance. It's not something you do once and then you're done. It's like an evolving, ongoing process. But you can do it in just 5 or 10 minutes a day. So if you spent 5 or 10 minutes every day with that focused goal of what you're looking for, you can really make changes in just a couple months. So when you do send a LinkedIn request note, always include a note, but you should say like the benefit to the person you're connecting with, not what's good for you. If you say what's good for you, like why would I care? Why would I accept your LinkedIn request? This one could be considered a little rude in the United States. So definitely think about like how you can write it differently. Here's an example of someone that reached out to me. You don't have to write this much. A simple sentence or two of, complimenting the person or like why you want to connect can be really helpful. So now the interviewing part, remember that interviewing is a conversation, not an interrogation. So do keep that in mind. So with the conversation, do you have any questions? You should always say yes. Have some questions ready before you start the interview. When the interview starts, they're not going to usually ask if you have any questions, but just keep this general idea in mind. So if they ask you a question and you answer, you can also add a question of your own at the end of your answer. I feel like I have so much to say on this topic. I don't have enough time, but usually the questions in the beginning, you'll be asking about your background, and that doesn't mean like tell me your life story. It means like what have you done recently that will help me solve my problem, and you only know what that problem is by doing research on the company. So make sure to be very prepared for your interviews. I usually spend about 6 to 8 hours doing research about a company before my first interview. So it's pretty exhausting, but it can definitely make you more prepared. So some example questions, and I have a link later at the end. I have a list of like, I think 200 questions that I've collected from different people over the years that you could prepare for interviews. The tell me about a project you've designed for that you're proud of is one that I use all the time, and it's a question I will always ask. You should be able to answer that in just 5 or 6 sentences, and you want me to be interested and ask follow-up questions. So it can be hard interviewing also because not everyone's a good interviewer. It's definitely something that takes skill and practice, and you need to learn how to be a good interviewer. If you have some research skills, you could definitely translate that into interviewing, but you may have answered all the questions correctly, but the interviewer sucked and asked bad questions, and that can really hurt you with no fault of your own. So, website or app that has good UX, bad UX. So you definitely want to think of like heuristics here, objective reasons on why something might be good or bad UX. So once you have the wireframe, how do you pass it on to development? It's sort of a little bit of a trick question in the sense that you should be involving the developers all the way through the process, not fully, but lightly, but maybe when you're sketching and thinking of ideas, ask developers like what's technically possible. You really need to keep in contact with them and understand what's doable. You don't want to design something and then hand it over and be like, and then the developers say like, we can't build this. We have too many constraints. We don't have enough time. Our code stack doesn't support this. So you definitely want to know those things before you get to the wireframe stage. So be cognizant of that and be able to answer that. If you haven't worked with developers, and this will be a question quite frequently, there's lots you can read online about working with developers and like how to answer this question. It's definitely getting like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but more and more important to understand accessibility. So WCAG is the accessibility organization, and they have tons of information. You can go to wcag.org, and so A, AA, and AAA are different levels, and like they have different rules that you need to meet. If you're working for any kind of bank in the US or any company that has like federal money, you need to know this. These are a requirement for your designs. And just with what's going on in the world, it's like, I would consider a requirement for any website. For example, I was just interviewing someone for a role. They didn't know anything about accessibility at all. And so they didn't pass the screening interview. They couldn't answer this question. And so I can't move them on to the hiring manager. So definitely understand about accessibility and how to design and do research for that. It's really, really, really important in interviews these days. You'll be asked about user research. If you're at a really big tech company, they have separate teams, and so you won't be asked about user research, but you might be asked like, how do you work with user researchers? So that's something to know about. If you're working for a smaller company or a startup, they'll ask you, what role do you think user research should play in a startup? And you have to be cognizant that they have to move fast, and so you don't have a lot of time to do research. And so what are some methods you can do that are very quick to get the information you need? how you would respond to different stakeholder scenarios will come up, things like that. So yeah, use your user research skills and ask questions. So the final question you should always ask in the interview, I enjoyed our conversation, learning more about you and the team. After getting to know me a little better, do you have any reservations about me being a fit for this role? This is your chance to, your chance to put to rest any fears or things the hiring manager might feel like you're not a fit for. If you don't have time, it's something you could always send in a follow-up email. But you always want to address why you might not be a fit before they just say, okay, you're not a fit. Take notes, do whatever you can so you can learn from each interview. Here's a whole bunch more sample questions. There's a link at the bottom of the Google spreadsheet that you can take a look at. Yeah, so there's no way you can know like every possible question, but just getting familiar and practicing different questions can be helpful, so you don't have to like just be on the spot and like deer in the headlights, and you can sort of be prepared to answer those questions. So I just have a bunch of resources at the end, which hopefully you'll get the slides. And then one thing I wanted to add that I forgot to put in the slide deck, and I'll add it before I send out the slides, is when you're answering an interview question, you should use what we call there's a couple different names, STAR, SOAR, or CAR method to answer questions. STAR is situation, task, actions, results. SOAR is situation, objective, actions, results, and CAR is context, action, results. So basically you want to have a way of structurally answering questions. One reason it helps you keep from rambling, it keeps your answers concise and focused, and it also sets up the information that's most helpful to the hiring manager or whoever is interviewing you. And I'll include some resources to that in the slide deck. But basically, you want to give a couple sentences. What was the situation you were dealing with? So if I asked you, what project are you most proud of? Give me a couple of sentences of context, such as, so I have a project that's really large, so I struggle a little bit putting this, but like, I was working with a team of developers as the only designer, creating a brand new product from scratch at a very large tech company. We were working in an agile Scrum methodology, and so things were moving quickly. I was brought in not at the beginning of the product, but like maybe 1/4 of the way through. And excuse me. And so that can help you set the context. Then if I go with the STAR method, task, I was brought in to make the developer screens look pretty. I was more of a UI designer, but I quickly realized in my role that a lot more UX thinking needed to be done, and some understanding of who our users were needed to be done. When I asked the product managers who our users were, they said everyone, and that was an immediate red flag for me to know that's not true. You can't design for everyone. And so that's the task. And then my actions were, I set about to do some research. I knew I couldn't do it all on my own, so I enlisted some other people in the company and worked on some existing research that the company already had, and then did some of my own research and came up with 8 personas, which was actually quite a lot, that we would design for, broken into 2 groups. So those were the actions. I created posters, like large posters and like cards developers could keep at their desks of the different personas, and created a wiki all about the research that I was doing and what all the new learnings, because I kept doing research even after like the research portion was done. So those were my actions, and then the results were that the entire project team became more aligned and sort of understood who we were designing for and like who we were offering this product to, and also helped the marketing team write better stories. So that's the results. So you can see in just like 6 or 7, maybe 8 sentences in that case, I sort of answered the question, but I also left places for the hiring person or whoever was interviewing me to ask more questions. So I hope that was helpful. Yeah, I feel like I could keep on going for like another hour, but I do see we have some questions in the Q&A and the chat.
Yes, that was really insightful, Julia, and we are very thankful that you had taken us through all the slides and your experience about this topic. Let us just jump on to the Q&As now. Okay. So the first one is from anonymous attendee. Would you recommend applying for a job if you met 90% of the requirements, like having all the skills, but missing that 1 to 2 years of experience they want, even when they advertise they're hiring entry level?
Yes, I would apply. This is tricky. Like, I get super frustrated about this myself, like on other people's behalf, this like entry level job, but then they want like 3 years of experience, which is ridiculous. I'm learning as a recruiter, there are multiple issues why this is happening. It's not just one thing. I thought I could like become a recruiter, find the answer and be like, okay, I'm gonna go fix this, but it's multiple issues. Yes, I recommend applying. However, so you're gonna apply, let's say online. If so, you send your, apply online, include your resume and stuff, but don't just stop there. Then try and find who the hiring manager is and reach out to them with a connection request on LinkedIn and let them know you applied, and, include a sentence or two on why you would be able to solve the problem they're having. Just applying online is definitely not really going to get you anywhere. There's something, I think it's like only 1 to 2% of people who apply online actually get the job. So definitely apply, but do a little extra legwork.
Perfect. So we have one more question from anonymous attendee. What questions can we expect from the interviewer after we are done presenting our portfolio?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, it'll be a lot of like, why did you make this decision? Or so it'll be a lot of that. So usually, I feel bad telling those people, but you have your online portfolio. That's your like organic, comes up in search, or people are quickly looking at it. But when you go in for an interview, you need to make a presentation deck like I just did of your portfolio. It's usually just 2 case studies. So you don't need to do everything, and it's more of a deep dive into those projects. And you should usually say like, please, stop. Like, I actually should have stopped at each section and asked if people had questions, but I guess I knew we were doing this Q&A at the end. But you might stop after each case study and ask if someone has any questions, and then they'll usually have you go back to certain slides and say like, can you tell me why you did X? Or a lot of times they'll ask you about metrics, like after this was released, what happened, or things like that. They'll ask you about the stakeholders involved, like what, how did you handle like different people asking for different things related to your design? How was it received? Yeah, lots of questions about like the specific things you showed on the screen, and then the context of those things, like who was involved in these decisions and things like that.
That's great. So there's just one more question from Abdel Rahman Amer. For someone who is transitioning from UX research and design, no UI skills, to product management, what can be considered transferable, usable for a PM portfolio?
Yeah, it's a little interesting. I mean, transitioning to product management. So transferable skills are like juggling multiple projects or stakeholders. Understanding like the ultimate goal of the product and like metrics, any kind of metrics and measurements. You really want to focus more on business outcomes and like how whatever you worked on helped the business. And so you might have to go back and ask people you worked with if you don't know that already. As far as like portfolio, you don't need the same kind of portfolio that you would have as a UX designer or researcher. Product managers actually usually don't have portfolios, but you will have to do an assignment where they usually give you a business problem in the interview process. It's called like a case study. They give you a case study and you have to say how you would go about solving that. So I wouldn't really worry about your portfolio too much, but I would focus a lot on your LinkedIn profile. So for example, you were UX designer, researcher, and now you want to be product management. Your headline should say product manager with a background in UX. And then some other, keywords that might come up related to product management. And then your about section should talk about why you're switching and like what you can bring to the table with your UX background that's different from other product managers. And then in your experience section, when you talk about your UX designer research, you should talk about like, oh, I handled this many stakeholders, or I managed this team, or the business outcomes for this project was X. I achieved Y, things like that. And then one thing to be careful if you are career transitioning, whether it's from another career to UX or UX to product management, it's a little frustrating, but then you need to change your skills to product management skills and not UX skills. You can keep some of the UX skills, but you need to delete a lot of the UX ones and put product management stuff. Sort of a pain because then you have to like get endorsements for the new stuff. So that will help as well.
Great. I guess Abdul Rahman question would be answered here. Let's move on to Nandini Thiru. So she's asking, what can I do if I don't know an answer?
That's good. Yeah. So there's two, it depends what the question is. So like, let's say it's a question like, do you know Acture or something like a prototyping software? Hopefully you've heard of it, but if you haven't, you could say, I'm familiar with the tool, but I am not very proficient in it, but I'm a quick learner, and then give an example of how you like quickly learn some other tool. So that's if it's like a very technical question. Never say like, I don't know or anything like that, or I don't, like that. If it's a more like process question, like how do you work with it, or they ask you something super specific, let's say about working with developers, and you've never run into that situation, you can say, I haven't run into that exact situation, but here's an example that might be related from something else. So you always want to show an example of how you learned quickly if you don't know the answer to something, or a related topic of how you did something that could be related. So I hope that makes sense and answers that question.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like in general, general situation also where you are heading for any kind of interview and you don't know an answer. So yeah, it is as well. Elena Busarova, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it correctly. Could you, so she's asking, could you please repeat those star answer constructions?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so it's all the same thing, but yeah, just different acronyms. But STAR is situation, task, action, results. SOAR is situation objective actions results. CAR is context action results. So they all have actions and results, and then just whether it's called context or situation. So that's sort of the key points, is like sort of structuring your answer in like what was going on, what was the situation or context of the problem, what you were asked to do and what you did, and then what was the outcome.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Julia. I guess Alina's question is answered here. Alina, let us know if you need any other help. Jagdish Kumar is asking, what type of questions can be expected for a UX lead? Like a few examples.
Oh, that's a good question. So UX lead will ask some of the same questions I showed and on the spreadsheet, but you'll also be asked how you mentor others, how you might have led a project team of varying skills, like UI designers and researchers and copywriters or content strategists or whatever it could possibly be. So a lot about like cross skills and how you've like led a project to success. I'm trying to think like more. So also what can be a little tricky is lead means different things at different companies. For some, it's like you're leading big complex projects and you're managing the different people and what they're doing on the project. Other places, it's sort of like a manager, like a junior manager role. But you're still leading people in one way. So it could be asked like, how do you motivate people? How do you keep people on track? Trying to think. If you're working, so one thing I forgot to talk about, so in-house means like you're working at a company on like their specific products, whereas agency is like clients come to your company and you work for lots of different clients. I do recommend if you're junior to go to an agency because you get a lot of work really fast that you can put in your portfolio and you can build skills really quickly. In-house tends to go more slowly than agency, even if they say like, oh, we're agile and we go super fast. Unless they're a startup, that's not really true. But back to the lead thing. Yeah, it's really how you manage time, manage people, manage projects, things like that you'll be asked about.
Perfect. So I guess Jagdish, your question is answered here. Let us know if you have any further questions. There's one more question, an interesting one from, again, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, but I'll try. It is in the chat box. It is Kauthar Tam. The question, I guess it is, I'm a dentist switching to UX UI design. Do I have a better chance being hired if I go through a boot camp and present the projects we learn there, or is it best if I work on projects that I personally look for? Any other advice?
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting question. I wouldn't say one, well, let's see. I struggle with this because I feel like a lot of boot camps suck, but like sometimes they're better than nothing and they're expensive, like they're ridiculously expensive. How about I'll just say the pros and cons and then you can make your own decision. Yeah, so a boot camp can be good for structure, keeping you accountable, giving you very specific work on what to do. Also, depending how technically inclined you are, boot camps can be helpful, and then they're expecting you to use industry-specific tools, and there can be some support there if you're not, familiar with those tools. So those are the pros. If you just do your own projects, personally, I find that like a slightly harder route because you don't know what you don't know. And compared to like when I was learning UX, there is so much information out there. Not all of it's good information, but as a beginner, you don't know that. I mean, you need to really think critically in this role and think critically about the kind of information you're taking in. So I feel like if you go the self-study route, it'll take a lot longer, honestly, because you'll make a lot more mistakes and you won't know you're making those mistakes until later. So I guess I'm sort of recommending a boot camp, but you could also, find a mentor who's willing to work with you, or a couple mentors, and that can be helpful to like go through all the different materials. I guess it just depends on also, I would say, your financial situation. Maybe you're like, I'm just not paying for like those boot camps, like it's just ridiculous. There are lots of options. I would definitely take some classes, some like really cheap or free classes to get an idea of some structure as well, even if you're going to do the self-study route. But so I would just keep in mind, like, how self-motivated are you, how much of a critical thinker and how tech savvy you are before you go with the self-study route. No matter what, you definitely need a mentor or two or three as you go along this journey. There can be lots of places to find these mentors. I think I've posted on LinkedIn a few places. A place to start is adplist.org. It's usually not long-term mentoring, but you could certainly ask. So I hope that answers your question.
I also do hope, because it was really an interesting question. So there's one more question. Vikas Pawar has been asking. I guess you have addressed this, but he is asking, what should we add in our portfolio as a fresher who never worked in any project?
So like you haven't worked on any projects, not in school even?
I guess it would be, he's a beginner, I feel, and he wants to.
Well, you can't build a portfolio with no content, so I wouldn't go ahead and I wouldn't worry about it yet. You need to learn some stuff and do some projects before you can build a portfolio. I wouldn't. Perfect. It's not like this industry is going to go away. It's not like this, you have to get in right now. So I wouldn't worry that you don't have anything. You have time. This is going to just keep building this industry. So don't feel like I need a portfolio, I need a job right now. Wait until you get a few projects from school or somewhere else. You can do volunteer projects to get things in your portfolio, but learn some stuff first before you start building a portfolio.
Perfect. Yes, Abdul Rahman, the recording will be available, and the slides will also will provide you the access for the same. Abdul had the question. I feel there is one more question. I'm not sure exactly what, but we'll try to find out. It is about the LinkedIn networking. I have lots of connections from uni colleges that are in transportation design. Should I disconnect from them or deconnect from them?
No. They did a study in LinkedIn in 2016 that your second degree connections are your biggest resource for getting a job. Nope, don't. No. So I do disconnect from people sometimes, but that's when I look at my network and I'm I don't remember who this person is, how I know them, no clue, nothing. And if I search to my LinkedIn messages and there's nothing there, then I'm okay, then I would disconnect from them. But if you're oh, I work with these people, then yeah, totally keep them in your network. The more people, the better.
Perfect. Agree with that, Julia. When it comes to LinkedIn, I guess there are no further questions at the moment. And hey guys, let us know in the Q&A if you have any more questions, or we should just end this today. Not seeing any questions today. So yeah, Julia, it was really insightful. your 20 years of experience in UX design, and you have I guess you're very passionate with design, and have led over 10 boot camps, right? You've
Yep.
been into in the past 5 years, so it's amazing, you sharing your experience. It's 6:30 a.m. that you were here. Really thankful for you, and guys, everyone who attended, it was great to have you here. We'll share the video and the slides as soon as possible with you guys. And yeah, Julia, I guess this Abhijit is saying thank you so much for this wonderful webinar. Mohammed Saifullah is saying thanks a lot, Julia, for knowledge. That's great. Apeksha is saying thank you. Thanks, guys. Julia, it is really appreciative, and okay, Kauthar is saying, I'm not sure still I'm pronouncing it right. He's saying thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. Love the session. Maruna is saying thank you so much. Thanks a lot. It was really helpful. I guess everyone is loving you.
Well, great. Yeah, I would definitely check. There are they call them group sessions on ADP List. They're just like this, and they're free. So I definitely recommend checking those out as well.
Perfect. You guys can check out Julia on LinkedIn, and I know you can reach out to her. And yeah, it was great to have you, Julia, here. And everyone, we have workshops every week with design experts, industry experts, and next week we'll have another workshop. So please do attend it. And yeah, take care and have a nice weekend, Julia.
Thank you very much. I hope everyone has a good weekend. Thanks.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
And everyone, take care. Bye-bye.